You know, they're throwing Scuds at you, or they're throwing those bottle rockets at you. We've got to drop phosphorus on them, which is, of course, a criminal act. Here he is, good buddies with Mr. Netanyahu. I don't know what they're talking about here. What's interesting about Mr. Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu, this man is, I think I've tried to present to you tonight, is the godfather of the war on terror. He's the Prime Minister of Israel today. He's the chairman of the Likud party. He's a psychopathic liar, if you've ever seen him speak. He had every Sunday afternoon, he had a conversation for years prior to 9/11. Every Sunday afternoon, he spoke with Mr. Larry Silverstein, who is the godfather of the 9/11 attacks. So what was it that these two men had to talk about every Sunday afternoon? And this is not me making this up. This is from the Israeli media. Haaretz. Haaretz means the land, right? Eretz Israel. Haaretz is the land. And it's up in smoke by Sarah Leibovitz Dar, November 2001. So what were they talking about? Football scores? Unlikely. This is the planning. As my German expert said, this required years of planning. As I've shown you tonight, it required decades of planning. Not years, decades. Here we see Mayor Bloomberg showing around in September 2011. He's showing the Netanyahus around this memorial they're building, the new memorial, the fountains and things like that. Well, Mr. Netanyahu knows very well what those pools are going to look like, because guess who made them? His Israeli buddy here. The 9/11 memorial was designed and built by Michael Arad. Michael Arad is the son of the former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Moshe Arad. Moshe Arad is a very good friend of the Netanyahus. So this is what I want to try to show you, is that at every single point of the 9/11 saga, from the ideation that came out in the 1970s, the movies, all the way through to the setting up of the crime, to the crime itself, to the cover-up, to the foisting of the false narrative, to the war on terror, at every single point, it's an Israeli or a very devoted, supporter of the state of Israel. Even the legacy of what happened there is in the hands of Israelis. How can that be? And we're supposed to think that Arabs did this, or German death cult, or Illuminati?
Sure.
Here it is when Larry Silverstein obtained the keys to the front door of the World Trade Center, July 24th, 2001. How did he get the World Trade Center 1 month and 2 weeks before the attacks? How did that happen? He got it through his Zionist connection. His Zionist connection is Larry Silverstein was the national chairman of the UJA Federation of New York. This is the main funding arm for the state of Israel, United Jewish Appeal Federation. So he was a chairman of the board, national chairman. And on his planning board was this other man, Lou Eisenberg, who went on to become the Port Authority. He was the Port Authority executive director. As executive director of the Port Authority, Mr. Eisenberg oversaw the negotiations which brought the public property of the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was public property. It then became privatized in June and went to this man. And this is the man who got the $7.5 billion, simply because of a good insurance policy. He didn't have any. His claim to fame prior to this was that he was indicted in a drug case with Bill Clinton, which was, of course, dismissed. And he was the owner of a strip club near the airport called Runway 69. That's it. And he's the head of this Zionist fundraising apparatus. So it's like the connection that these two men have is through this Zionist fundraising charity, UJA. So that what happened is that Lou Eisenberg made sure that the Vornado Realty would not get the contract, that when Vornado Realty, who was the expected recipient of the lease, got up and walked away from the table, they simply gave it to Larry Silverstein. Here's Larry Silverstein with his good buddy. These are partners. These are basically partners in the biggest crime of the century. This is Larry Silverstein's partner in the lease. This is an Israeli commando born in Czechoslovakia named Frank Lowy. This man owns Westfield properties in this country. So there's many shopping malls in California and Florida called Westfield. He owns them. And he got the lease for the retail space underneath the World Trade Center. And this is the man, Ronald Lauder, the son of Estee Lauder from the cosmetic company. This man is very closely tied to the Mossad. He has a school at Mossad University in Herzliya. And this is the man who oversaw the privatization program for the state of New York under Governor Pataki. This is the man who decided that, yes, we will privatize the World Trade Center and put the ball into motion which brought the World Trade Center into the hands of Larry Silverstein. So I'm just showing you that at every point in this operation, there is a player who is very highly connected to the state of Israel. This is not accident. This is not anything anti-Semitic on my part to point this out. I'm simply pointing out that the key players in this crime are all Zionists and Israelis. So that you can understand what is the nature of the crime we're talking about. What is the nature of the war on terror? This is a Zionist construct, and we have to understand that, because only when we undeceive ourselves and undeceive the people around us and undeceive our society will we be liberated from this agenda of war, which we are now married to. The agenda of war has cost this nation a great deal of blood and money, and it's not over. They intend to take this war agenda further to Iran, to Russia, which will be detrimental to the American Republic. It will destroy us, which is why it is in our best interest to stop this as soon as possible. Here's Mr. Netanyahu with Mr. Ehud Olmert. Ehud Olmert was the former Prime Minister of Israel, who just happened to be in New York City on September 11th. Yet it was not reported in any of the newspapers in New York City. He's the mayor of the sister city of New York, Jerusalem. He's the deputy mayor. He's the deputy prime minister of the state of Israel. Yet when he comes to when he comes to New York City on September 10th, nobody says anything about it. But they all know he's there. Why the secrecy? 10 days later, he came back to New York and held Giuliani's hand and said, well, we understand this. We're experts in terrorism. We can help you. So from the devastation of 9/11, there is a little bright light. That little bright light that's shining there. And that bright light is that this crime, when you understand the deception of this crime, when you understand the players involved, when you understand that this is the Achilles heel to this crimocracy that runs this country, by exposing the deception, by understanding the people who are involved in it, we can remove this crimocracy from our country. But we can't do it if we don't prosecute these people, if we don't understand who did it, and if we don't hold these people accountable. That is the struggle of our time. And the thing is that, like a friend of mine says, if you look through history, you will see that big change comes from movements, not from politicians. So don't hold your breath and think that Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders is going to solve 9/11 for us. And, no foreign country is going to be able to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. This is an American problem. This is our country. This is our world. And the only way we're going to rectify the problem is to personally take ownership of it and do something about it. And the best thing we can do is spread the information to our friends and our fellow citizens and bring about an increase of awareness, because this is a revolution of awareness and a revolution of consciousness. We cannot go up against these guys in Washington with guns like those guys tried to do down in Burns. You can't go up against these guys with strength, with guns, or with violence. They will vilify you, then kill you, and then vilify you some more. What do you accomplish? You're dead. We have to stay alive. We have to stay healthy. We have to stay happy. We have to get our sense of humor back, laugh at this stuff, and spread the word. Be positive. Don't be afraid. Don't listen to Alex Jones and tremble and say, oh, FEMA knows about me, and NSA reads my email, and I better not write to Mr. Bollyn or send him any money because they'll know about me and I'll be in a FEMA camp. Drop it. Forget the fear. There's nothing to be afraid of. The thing you have to be afraid of is doing nothing and letting this agenda go forward another day. That's what we have to stop. So with that, I want to thank you for coming. It's a really nice crowd. It's a pleasure to be here again.